Revealed, how a cleaner's unexpected nightly tea transformed a billionaire's life after divorce. Claire dusted the mahogany coffee table in the penthouse, her eyes scanning the dazzling view of Manhattan. She often felt invisible in the opulent surroundings, like a ghost haunting a gilded cage. Each night, she cleaned the space for Thomas Hayes, a billionaire with a life splintered by sudden divorce, a man whom she could not fathom compared to her own struggles. Lately, she had taken to noticing the shadows lurking in his weary eyes, reminding her that wealth did not guarantee happiness. Tonight, as she heard him sigh from the adjoining room, another wave of determination washed over her. Her son, Jake's laughter echoed in her mind, eager and pure, unspoiled by the disappointments of life. It was fusion of hope and weariness that drove her every move. How long could she keep this up, this exhausting balancing act of motherhood and cleaning, often a single paycheck away from disaster? Worry flooded her thoughts. Did her dreams turn to ashes when her husband left? Why couldn't she shake the unease that clawed at her as she put on a brave face? Just as she tidied a throw pillow, a pulse of desire to reach out engulfed her landscape of fears. In a sudden impulse, she entered the kitchen, making a cup of her grandmother's herbal tea. It was a moment of reckoning. The boiled water gave off rich scents of chamomile and peppermint, invoking memories of safety that seemed miles away. She could visualize Thomas's face when she handed him the cup, an unusual gesture, yet a small part of her screamed it was foolish to cross the invisible line between cleaner and customer. Would he even accept it? What if he rejected her solidarity, only reinforcing that she was merely a cleaner? Still, the thought of his distant, solitary nights tugged at her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Claire stepped into the living room holding the warm cup, she hesitated. Compound feelings twisted in her stomach. Would offering him this small piece of herself elevate her or fracture them further? But the moment their eyes met, she felt something shift. She handed him the cup with trembling fingers and watched as a flicker of surprise brightened his features. For an instant, the luxury and anguish collided, and suddenly they were just people sharing warmth in a cold world. Yet as their conversations unfolded over the next evenings, both found themselves grappling with the weight of their separate lives. Thomas confessed his fears, the expectations of his elite circle, the whispers that still haunted him since the divorce. With every story, Claire felt her own insecurities surface, the echoes of her past misfortunes cutting deeper than ever. Could she belong in his world? Would he ever see her for more than a cleaner? Anxiety coiled tightly in her chest like a noose, suffocating and resolute. On the brink of the upcoming charity gala, Claire's mind spiraled. He was inviting her, yet, shadows of doubt crept in. Would the shimmer of his world drown her out? Did she dare step into a realm that looked down on those like her? Nothing could prepare her for the revelation that was yet to come. As she prepared for that night, a phone call shattered her fragile composure. The words from the other end changed everything she knew about her own lineage, igniting an internal storm that risked sending her life spiraling. Caught between loyalty, fear, and newfound clarity, Claire and Thomas stood on the brink of change, their lives intertwined yet perilously fragile, with the reality looming that one decision could tear them apart forever. The air in Claire's small apartment was thick with uncertainty as she paced, clutching her phone with trembling hands. The voice on the other end had unraveled everything she thought she knew about her family. Was it true? After years of living with pain and loss, the revelation of her lineage sent shockwaves through her mind, dismantling her sense of self. The past she had constructed, the hardships she bore with resilience, suddenly felt like a transient mirage. How could this be? The seed of doubt lodged itself deep in her heart, whispering relentless questions. what would Jake think? Would he feel the weight of her past crashing down on them? Panic flitted through her thoughts as she reflected on the single mother she had worked so hard to become. She felt desperate to maintain the one constant she had fought for. With a newfound complexity to her identity, Claire sank onto the edge of her bed, a gravitational pull toward the very foundations of her life as she grappled with who she was now. As days rolled into nights, she kept her emotions under wraps during her shifts. The penthouse loomed larger than ever, a vast landscape of uncertainty. Thomas's invitation to the gala sat heavily in her mind, trapped in a whirlpool of anticipation and dread. Each encounter felt charged with unspoken truths, the sincerity in his eyes, the way he seemed unburdened in her presence. But the closer they got, the more she feared he might see her for what she truly was, a woman adrift, struggling to hold on to her identity while facing the twisted revelations of her past. Her transformation during their conversations had begun to shape her perception of herself. Thomas, with his vulnerability, had opened a doorway to something she had dismissed as unattainable, a voice of her own. Would he still find her extraordinary if he fathomed the chaos swirling within? Wouldn't he recoil from the truth of her lineage, perhaps distancing himself once again into the world of glitz and false pretense? One evening, as they sat in the quiet of the penthouse, she caught him observing her intently after he'd shared a story of overcoming his own hurdles. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" she asked, a mixture of confusion and vulnerability painting her voice with sincerity that he studied her, a fleeting softness in his expression. "Because you're unlike anyone I've met, Claire. You see the world differently than I do. You find value in things I often overlook. It's refreshing." His words pricked at the armor she had carefully constructed, an invitation to strip away her insecurities. Claire could have laughed a woman like her, valuable? She feigned a nod while internally questioning his judgment. Yet, when she allowed herself to internalize his compliment, a small flicker of belief ignited. Before she could fully embrace this notion, the impending gala loomed over her, an event where Lionel, her estranged father, and the truth about her origins might cross paths with her new life. It wasn't just about Thomas anymore, it was about her, her autonomy, her voice. With each passing day, she began unraveling the threads of her upbringing that had bound her. She was not only a cleaner, she was a mother, a survivor, a complex individual forged in trials. Determined to take control of her narrative, Claire began preparing for the gala with focused intent. As she stood before the mirror on the eve of the event, a refreshing resolve replaced her trepidation. She wanted to confront every aspect of herself, the cleaner, the mother, the daughter, no matter how disorderly or unexpected they might be. But that night, just as she was about to step into her new reality, a familiar name echoed in her mind that sent chills coursing through her. The name had been mentioned in her phone call earlier, now rooted deeply within her consciousness. Claire. Jake's voice interrupted her thoughts, bringing her back to the moment, but it wasn't the concern in his tone she noticed. Rather, it was the unyielding curiosity in his bright eyes. "Are you okay?" His question gnawed at her, sparking a realization that she might not just be preparing for an external journey but an internal reckoning. What truths lay beneath the surface, waiting to be confronted? As she met her son's gaze, Claire felt a powerful question stirring within her. Could she face not only her lineage but also the fears that had haunted her for too long? Her decision, the culmination of courage and resolve, awaited her, and just then, with the world outside buzzing with possibility, her choice loomed. Would she reveal the truth to Jake before the gala, or shield him from uncertainties? One choice could define the very fabric of their lives, leaving her gasping for breath in the wake of its consequences. The morning arrived with a mist of apprehension wrapped tightly around Claire as she stirred from sleep. Jake lay peacefully beside her, an expression of innocence on his face that only deepened her internal conflict. Part of her welcomed the quiet moment, the chance to soak in his presence and bask in the simplicity of their relationship, but another part wrestled with the urgency of the truth that swirled just beneath the surface. As she observed him, she felt the weight of her responsibilities bear down heavily. Would revealing her past shatter his understanding of their life together? In that moment, she recognized that clarity would only come through action. She resolved to act today, both in confronting her own truth and in sharing it with Jake. After they shared breakfast, a routine of laughter lightening the morning air, the pang of confrontation lurked, threatening to disrupt the fragile peace. She shuttled between actual readiness and the impulse to brush everything aside. Once they finished, Claire took a deep breath, searching for the right words as she watched Jake play with his toys. The sight tugged at her insides, his innocence called out to her as an elemental force demanding protection. "Jake, can we talk for a minute?" The words escaped her before fear could label them as foolish. As he turned to look at her, curiosity lit up his face, casting shadows over her misgivings. "Sure, Mom," he replied, rising and abandoning his game. They sat together on the edge of the sofa, the weight of this small area suddenly electrified. Claire's heart raced as she gathered her thoughts, wondering how best to unravel the complexities of her past without overwhelming him. "Something important happened, and I need to tell you about it," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Jake's expression tightened, the glint of concern evident in his eyes. "What is it? Is something wrong?" "No, sweetheart, it's just that some things I thought I knew about myself aren't true. It's a little complicated." As she shared the fragmented pieces of her life, her mother's choices, her father's absence, the struggles she had faced, Claire noticed Jake's furrowed brow and the way he consumed her words, taking in every detail with a maturity that surprised her. "I'm still your mom, and that hasn't changed," she stressed, hoping to anchor reassurance amidst revelations. "But I've never been completely honest with you about my life before we started this one together. Is that why you've been acting weird, like you're worried I won't love you anymore?" he asked, his innocent words laced with clarity that struck deep within Claire, her heart twisted painfully. "I just never wanted anything to come between us." His young face softened, and he replied, "You could never make me stop loving you. Everyone has a story." A wave of relief washed over her as she realized Jake had embraced the complexities of their lives without judgment. At that moment, she understood that vulnerability could effectively bridge the chasm created by secrets and pain. "Thank you for saying that," she breathed out, leaning forward to plant a kiss on his forehead. Their bond felt stronger than ever, as if they had forged a new promise of honesty and understanding. Yet as the day unfolded, her resolve to embrace both her new identity and the past remained stiffened by trepidation. The gala approached an arena not just of social niceties, but a potential battleground for confronting Lionel, the man she barely knew, yet who held the keys to many of her unanswered questions. With the knowledge that she would need to present her best self, both new and old, Claire meticulously picked a dress that felt empowering yet authentically her, a deep navy with subtle sparkles that caught the light, an emblem of her journey from darkness into self-realization. As the evening drew nearer, she felt the bittersweet pangs of progress mixed with uncertainty. The power within her felt palpable, yet it flickered with the harsh reality of who might truly know her by the end of the night. Would she emerge as the woman she had fought to become, or be swallowed whole by the remnants of her lineage? By the time she stood before the mirror one last time, her makeup a soft emphasis of her features, the reflection revealing a spirit forged anew, one devilishly potent thought crossed her mind: the time had come to engage with her past fully. Just as she made a final adjustment to her hair, a sudden thought flickered through her consciousness: was she truly ready to face Lionel, with Jake watching closely by her side? The sheer intensity of the moment gripped her. She was on the precipice of transformative change, with the ominous presence of her unresolved issues waiting like shadows in the night. As the gala approached, Claire's heart raced with every passing minute. She stepped out of the mirror's reflected haven, trembling between hope and dread. With each step toward the looming event, her uncertainty felt like an anchor, heavy, powerful, and inescapable. Navigating through the hopeful chaos of the evening meant accepting her history, not altering its narrative but acknowledging its entwining with her present. As she and Jake approached the venue, she felt the world around her bustling, yet she remained paradoxically isolated in a whirlwind of emotion. The swish of her dress felt like a catalyst, tantalizingly shifting the air around her into something more vibrant, more alive. Jake's presence grounded her. When he glanced up at her, his bright blue eyes reflected that innocent faith she had been terrified to disrupt. "You look like a princess, Mom," he remarked, the sincerity of his words fanning the flames of her resolve. His approval filled her with strength. Perhaps she could lean on that love as she faced Lionel. They entered the grand room, a majestic space bathed in soft light and filled with laughter. The warmth of conversations danced through the air, whispering the human stories hanging just beneath the surface. But Claire felt the heat of a different story brewing within her, one of fear and retribution. In search of a moment of solitude, she retreated momentarily into a quieter corridor lined with art. The work captured struggles she related to characters caught mid-conflict. The imagery mirrored her internal battle. Vibrant colors fought through shades of gray, encapsulating her own strive for clarity. Claire hesitated, contemplating how her revelations about her past could redefine her interaction with Lionel and these wealthy strangers who appeared worlds away from her own childhood struggles. Yet amidst this turmoil, she recognized how her past painted her strength in stark colors. No longer would she allow it to bind her. This realization empowered her to step back into the gala-esque contemporary landscape, arms raised in fragile defiance against her demons. With Jake holding her hand, she scanned the room, hoping to catch sight of Lionel among the polished smiles and clinking glasses. Yes, he was there, animated in conversation with others, entirely unaware of the storm brewing inside her. A flicker of resolve ignited within Claire as she recalled her conversation with Jake and the bond they shared. "I want to let you down, Jake," she whispered almost to herself, launching herself into the crowd with new purpose. Each step toward Lionel felt like a political gathering of sorts where she had to project herself as a confident leader, armed with the hard-earned wisdom of a life colored by experience, yet vulnerable enough to embrace her truth. When Lionel finally saw her, a mix of surprise and recognition washed over his face. "Claire," he called, his voice carrying across the crowded space, causing eyes to turn. "I didn't expect you to be here." She held herself steady, a response already constructing in her mind. It needed to be strong, assertive, yet not unkind. His presence was both a beckoning disaster and an invitation to redeem her doubts. "Neither did I," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I need to talk to you." He glanced around, the superficial social dynamics momentarily forgotten as he stepped toward her, curiosity gleaming in his gaze. Jake's grip tightened on her hand, and a spark of anxiety flickered in Claire's chest. This was the moment it felt like a train was hurtling down a track without brakes. Would she seize it, or would their past derail everything? She took a deep breath, swallowing down uncertainty. The silence of her heartbeat forged strength from vulnerability. She was ready to face Lionel and the truth of her history. "Will you come with me?" she urged, pulling him gently toward a quieter area. Her heart raced not just from fear, but from the excitement of finally shutting the door on uncertainty. What she didn't realize was this moment echoed far beyond her personal story. It would reverberate through both their lives. As they stepped away from the dazzling crowd, the uncertainties melted into possibilities, heralding the dawn of a new understanding filled with haunting revelations. The air shimmered with tension, but Claire was ready to embrace it. Could she unravel the tangled threads of her past and bring newfound clarity to their connection, or would this gate lead only to more pain? The corridor became a sanctuary, the noise of the gala fading into a muffled hum behind them. Claire caught her breath, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Claire, what's this about?" Lionel asked, his brow furrowed with genuine curiosity that only stoked her determination. She found herself searching his eyes for the boy she once knew, the friend who had shared both laughter and heartache. Here was a man molded by time and circumstance, his path diverged from hers yet still undeniably tied by the threads of their shared history. "I need to explain," Claire began, steadiness in her voice despite the turmoil within. "About everything that happened between us and why I've distanced myself." The air felt electric as her words hung between them, laden with years of silence and the weight of their past. The vulnerabilities she had masked for so long were surfacing now, angry and indignant that he shifted his weight, and she noticed a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it regret or understanding? "I thought we had moved on from that," he replied, the subtle edge in his tone revealing his own investment in their past. "I didn't expect this conversation." "No one does," she countered, feeling her defenses rising against the encroaching doubts. "But every time I see you, it feels like we're still unraveling the same threads." The ghosts of old arguments and unspoken words echoed in her mind. This rendezvous wasn't merely a conversation, it was an opportunity to reclaim her narrative. "I can't change the past, Claire," Lionel replied, shaking his head as if to physically dispel the tension. "But we can change how we approach the future," Claire asserted, the conviction in her voice growing stronger. "I can't do this without being honest about how your decisions impacted my life. You were my first love, Lionel. We made decisions together, some good, some bad. But I need you to see my side." His expression softened, opening space for a dialogue she desperately needed. "I've always cared about how my actions affected you," he admitted, the sincerity in his tone allowing her to feel a glimmer of hope. This was the moment she had waited for, the opportunity to unveil the hurt she had carried in secret. She could feel the specter of their shared past encroaching old rivalries, unfulfilled dreams, a cacophony of regrets intertwined with aspirations yet to come. "Do you remember that summer? We thought we were invincible. But when I found out about your choices, it shattered something in me." Claire paused, the vulnerability of her confession washing over her. "I spent too long blaming you, and not enough time acknowledging my own fears. It made me run away instead of fighting for what we had." Claire sensed his discomfort, yet she pressed on. This wasn't just a crossroads for them, it was her moment for reclamation. "I want to talk about what happened that night, Lionel. Not to dredge up old wounds but to finally heal them." His eyes narrowed slightly, wary yet intrigued. It was a mixture Claire recognized well, the willingness to confront the past while desperately wanting to escape its grasp. "What do you hope to gain from this?" "Understanding," she replied, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. "Closure, and maybe a chance at something more, even if it's just friendship. I want to define our narrative, not let it define us." In that moment, she realized she was no longer bound by the fear of his rejection, she was carving her path, yet, a flicker of doubt punctured her resolve. Would he push back, leave her hanging with her heart exposed? Or could he muster the courage to acknowledge the shared pain, to address not just what was lost, but what could still be? Just then, a familiar laugh drifted down the corridor, shattering the moment. Their world outside rushed back in the chatter, the clinking of glasses, the bright lights of the gala. Claire's breath quickened, they were both facing a pivotal choice. Could they embrace the scars of their past for the promise of a future? Before she could form an answer, Lionel's expression shifted. The noise of the gala might have blurred their privacy, but the intensity of their conversation sharpened. "I didn't just leave you behind, Claire. I was running from my own failures. This is hard for me too." The confession hung in the air. The question of what came next loomed larger than ever. Could she accept that they both needed to navigate this tangled history together, or would pride and past mistakes keep them apart? And suddenly, she recognized that the true revelation was not merely about addressing their past, it was the realization that growth often requires confronting one's own painful truths. In his eyes, she caught a glimpse of a shared reckoning. The next step awaited her, filled with yearning and trepidation. What if, after all this time, we could finally rewrite our ending? The silence between them vibrated with promise, a pathway to a future they had barely begun to imagine. The energy in the corridor crackled like lightning as Claire gathered her thoughts, her heartbeat matching the urgency of the conversation. Memories of hurt and absence churned in her mind, but so did the potential for something new. She recognized that this moment was not merely a turning point in their relationship, it was a reflection of her own trajectory. Lionel's vulnerability touched a chord within her, igniting a nascent sense of hope. But this wasn't just about rekindling friendship or professional ties, it was about owning her narrative, about the strength it took to confront the shadows of her past. The bright lights of the gala beyond felt like a distant world, one she was beginning to extricate herself from a world that felt heavy with expectations she was no longer willing to shoulder alone. Your failures? Claire echoed softly, searching for clarity. You think I haven't felt the weight of my own choices too? Every decision led me further away from you. I became someone I barely recognized, allowing fear to dictate my actions. Each word felt like a step toward freedom from old shackles. She was learning to articulate her truth, slowly unraveling the tangled knots that had confined her. Lionel's brows knitted together, a frown deepening the lines of his face. But Claire, how do we move forward? Can we really rewrite our ending without repeating the same mistakes? The sharpness of his question coaxed an uncomfortable truth from the recesses of her mind. Could they avoid the cycle of disappointment that had plagued their relationship? Each painful memory prompted her to consider whether it was possible for them to comprehend each other's vulnerabilities without letting them dictate the narrative. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. I don't have all the answers. But I want to try. I want to understand not just who you are now, but who I have become, which, I admit, means confronting what I've avoided for too long. There was a flicker of hope in Lionel's hesitation, and she dared to seize it. If we could recognize our past mistakes, acknowledge our fears, maybe we stand a chance. He appeared to wrestle with her proposition. Claire understood that each of them was at a crossroads, one where personal growth and mutual understanding coalesced into a singular fork in the road. It feels like such a risk, Lionel finally said, his voice laced with authenticity. What if honesty drives us further apart? What if it doesn't? Claire countered, her determination rising. The dialogue was cutting through the ghosts of their shared history, challenging not just their past but her own capacity to be vulnerable. In that moment, she realized that evolution could only come from the depths of discomfort. The past, laden with mistakes, did not have to dictate their future. It could serve as the foundation upon which they could build something stronger. They had both been living in a cocoon of their making, too afraid to emerge into the light of possibility. I refuse to keep living under the weight of uncertainties. I need to know, Lionel, do you see us finding a way to heal together? His gaze held hers, steady and unflinching, as if weighing her words in a precise balance. I'm scared, Claire. What if this hope becomes just another wound? Maybe that's a risk we have to take, for both our sakes. The realization swept over her that embracing their past, with its tumultuous emotions, was necessary for both of them to grow. She sensed that Lionel stood at the edge of a precipice similar to her own, teetering between fear and possibility. In that chaos of conflicting emotions, Claire understood that true growth was often found at the intersection of confrontation and compassion. The corridor felt smaller now, pressurized with the weight of unfolding truths and decisions yet to be made. With a tentative smile, she added, perhaps we need to let our scars speak. They can guide us even if we fear what they'll reveal. As silence settled between them, the question hung in the air, echoing the weight of their choices. Would they step forward into this uncharted territory together? Or would fear keep them shackled to a past neither truly wanted? Just as hope flickered in their grip, the sound of raucous laughter cut through the tension, jolting them back from the brink of their exploration. Claire felt a familiar tug of anxiety. This was more than just a conversation, now it felt like a test of fortitude. Could she summon the strength to walk this path, facing the unknown future with Lionel? The gala beyond beckoned like a world that felt all too real, yet she stood firm. They were at the cusp of a new chapter, one that threatened to either shatter or sculpt their bond into something unbreakable. How can we trust each other again? Lionel's voice interrupted her thoughts, igniting a new wave of anticipation that coursed through her. With their eyes locked, she felt the intensity of the crossroads shift. It was no longer only about rewriting endings. It was about forging a path toward understanding and renewal, one that might illuminate the shadows they had long endured. And in that critical moment, a flicker of clarity surged through her, a revelation that the real question was not just about trust. It was about whether they could wield the power of their past as a catalyst for a future yet unwritten. The final pieces of the puzzle were starting to align, all they needed was the courage to take that leap. Claire's pulse quickened as Lionel's question lingered in the air, each syllable sharpening her focus. Trust, such a fragile construct, yet it had become the very bedrock upon which she hoped they would build anew. She searched his eyes for an answer, but all she found was a mirror reflecting her own uncertainties. "What did you mean when you said you're scared?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, curiosity entwined with trepidation. It was essential to peel back the layers more exposed than she had imagined. He regarded her, gauging the honesty in her voice, and perhaps caught a glimpse of vulnerability he hadn't anticipated. Lionel hesitated, his gaze darting to the ground before returning to meet hers. "I've been afraid of letting someone in," he confessed, his voice almost a whisper. "I've built walls to protect myself from hurt, and somehow, I thought they would shield me from disappointment. But now, I see they only keep the good out as well." Her heart tightened at his admission, resonating deeply within her. Claire realized she had constructed similar defenses, crafting an impenetrable fortress around her heart, protecting not only against Lionel's abandonment but also against her own fear of facing the truth, the profound emptiness beneath her bravado. "What if we dismantle those walls together?" she suggested, the idea gaining momentum in her mind. "What if we became each other's safeguards instead?" The notion startled her. Was she truly advocating for shared vulnerability, a concept she had only grasped as an abstract ideal, not a practical application? Lionel's brows furrowed, deep in thought. "It feels so daunting, yet I know we can't move forward without courage. We have to be honest about who we are now, not who we were." A flicker of determination ignited in his expression. "I can do that, but I need to know you're committed to this too." There it was, a moment of alignment. The convergence of introspection and growth. Claire exhaled steadily, determination fortifying her. "I'm here for it. We can't reform the past, but we can redefine who we want to be today. I'm ready to be honest about my scars." Her admission unlocked something profound within her, a sudden torrent of clarity washing over her. Each acknowledgement, each scar she revealed, would chip away at the stones she had lowered upon her heart. Lionel's presence felt like a burning reminder of her own desire to be seen and understood. "What are you afraid of, really?" she probed further, her voice steady as she peeled back layers of a shared silence. "Is it just the fear of being vulnerable, or is there something deeper?" The palpable tension between them transformed, morphing into palpable energy. Lionel leaned against the wall, contemplating her question with a depth that went beyond surface-level reflection. "I think I've prioritized achievement over connection for so long that it feels foreign to allow myself to need someone else. It's a fear of losing my independence, maybe even of losing myself again." Claire nodded, understanding that she had flirted with the same existential fright. The notion of dependence, or the fear of it, had kept her circling the safety of solitude rather than pursuing the connection she longed for. "But maybe dependency doesn't have to mean losing ourselves," she countered softly. "Instead, we can learn how to support each other without sacrificing our individuality. It's not about codependence, it's about partnership." A contemplative light flickered in Lionel's eyes. "You're right. We've been so focused on the failures that we've forgotten the lessons. What if our independence became our strength rather than our separation?" Claire's spirit surged with hope. It felt like a secret door had opened. "Yes. We could learn to trust that raw honesty is the glue that bonds us, not the chains that bind us." As clarity broke like dawn, the laughter from the party outside began to fade into the background, the noise merely a reminder of a world they were transforming together. Lionel's voice grew stronger. "I want to try. If we face our truths together, there's a chance we can truly create something different. Something remarkable. Then let us do it," she said, her voice steady as an anchor. With each step they dared to take into their new understanding, Claire felt a lightness in her chest. Yet beneath that exhilaration lay an undercurrent of fear. What if trying led to pain again? A knock at the door startled them, interrupting their moment. "Hey! Are you guys coming back in?" A voice called out, vibrant and carefree. The interruption pulled them back, teasing the edges of their resolve. Claire felt as though time had suspended in that corridor, teetering between the possibility of profound transformation and the mundane reality of life before them. Brimming with unresolved tension, she turned to Lionel, the corners of her mouth lifting in a tentative smile. The future begins now. Are you with me? His gaze hardened with resolve. Absolutely. As they prepared to step beyond the threshold into the clamor of the gala, a knot twisted in Claire's stomach. Was she truly ready to embrace all the challenges that lay ahead? Would this newfound determination withstand the inevitable trials of their past? Together, they faced the door, their hands brushing against each other, as the laughter enveloped them once more. Would their determination carry them through the storms of their vulnerability, or would the pressure of change threaten to unravel what they had just woven together? The door swung open, and Claire found herself in a whirlwind of laughter and lights. The once tranquil atmosphere dissipated, replaced by an overwhelming surge of energy that threatened to drown the quiet promises they had just made. Claire clutched Lionel's hand a moment longer, anchoring herself to the connection they sought to deepen. The laughter around them was contagious, yet the gravity of their conversation lingered, wrapping around her like a cloak. "Can you do this?" she whispered to Lionel, a seed of doubt sprouting in her chest. "Can we really maintain the honesty we just spoke about amidst all this?" Lionel squeezed her hand, as if to reassure her that he was just as apprehensive yet hopeful. "Every step we take matters. We just have to be aware and committed even now." With a shared glance of determination, they stepped into the fray together. The cacophony of voices enveloped them, and Claire felt the distance between her heart and the exuberance of her surroundings grow. The chatter ebbed and flowed, a sea of social pretense that threatened to pull her under. "Claire! Over here!" A colleague waved her over, pulling her back into the reality of the gala and away from her internal tumult. It was all too easy to lose sight of her intention to grow, to connect, to confront her fears. As they navigated through the crowd, Claire forced herself to smile and engage. She could sense Lionel beside her, his presence a grounding force amidst the colorful chaos. Yet, as she conversed with familiar faces, the fear that had clung to her began to morph into something unshakable. She questioned whether she had been too hasty. Was she truly prepared to shed her protective layers in the glaring light of social scrutiny? Her mind drifted to the wisdom they had exchanged. The concept of partnership felt both exhilarating and suffocating. What if it fell apart? What if her vulnerabilities, once laid bare, were exploited? Each laugh echoed like a reminder of failing connections, moments where cordiality had masked deeper issues. "Excuse me, Claire," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Derek, the company's CEO. Claire felt her stomach twist. They hadn't shared cordial exchanges in years, not after their last project had ended in conflict. "I need to have a word with you." "Of course," she replied, masking the flutter of anxiety welling up within her. As he pulled her aside, a sense of foreboding loomed. Derek had never shied away from blatant observations, often highlighting her shortcomings and vividly recounting past failures in a way that left her off balance. She took a breath, recalling their commitment to honesty. "Claire, I've noticed that your team hasn't been as productive lately. A few stakeholders are concerned." He started with a tone veiled in concern, but Claire recognized it for what it was: an ultimatum couched in authority. Derek continued, "You can't let personal issues affect your professional life." The weight of his words settled heavily in her chest. Claire felt the walls of her fortress tremble, but instead of retreating into self-doubt, she steadied her gaze. "I appreciate your feedback, Derek. But I believe that personal growth also contributes positively to our professional environment. I'm working on strengthening those aspects, and it takes time." Derek blinked, surprised by her assertiveness. Claire's heart raced, surprised at her own confidence. "Being honest about my journey doesn't negate my work, it enhances it," she added, feeling a surge of empowerment as her voice grew stronger. "All right," he replied, a slight smirk tugging at his lips. "Just make sure those personal distractions don't linger." As they returned to the group, Claire felt a noticeable change within herself, an empowerment born of speaking her truth fueled her resolve. She found Lionel waiting, a hint of admiration in his expression. "Good job," he murmured as they continued weaving through the crowd. "You didn't hold back." "I surprised myself," Claire admitted, still catching her breath. "But did I really address it, or was it just a brave cover-up?" She caught the fleeting look of concern flit across Lionel's face, the unspoken question hanging between them. "Perhaps it's only the beginning," he offered, championing their commitment to honesty. "We can't avoid difficult conversations, they're part of growth." Claire felt a flicker of uncertainty again. Was she ready for the truth to confront her like a relentless tide? As she took a deep breath, the music swelled, and she recognized that every moment could demand a new level of vulnerability. As they stepped towards the open space of the hall, Claire's resolve solidified. She was entering uncharted territory. What had begun with one conversation had burgeoned into a web of challenges and revelations. "But what if I fail?" she thought, the fear creeping back under the surface. She turned to Lionel just as a wave of laughter swept through the gala. "This isn't just about us now. What about work? How will our colleagues react to our changes?" Lionel met her gaze, the determination unfaltering. "We'll face that together. After all, honesty doesn't just apply to our personal lives." Claire nodded, understanding that her journey was far from over. She had taken the initial steps, but now came the more daunting challenge of reconciling honesty with professional life. Were they truly ready to face the repercussions that lay ahead? Together, they grasped the moment, using it as a launchpad into the unknown. As the thunderous clamor filled their ears, Claire felt the excitement of a daunting journey unfold before them. Would they have the strength to navigate through the storms of their evolving dynamic? The night promised both confrontation and revelation, and the real challenge was only just beginning. As the music pulsed in waves around them, Claire found herself standing at the edge of the gala's vibrant center, the chatter of nearby conversations melding into a dizzying hum. Lionel's presence beside her felt like an anchor, but something inside her stirred a sense of urgency mixed with an unshakable apprehension. Was confronting personal issues at work an act of bravery or folly? "Let us steer toward the quieter area," Lionel suggested, sensing the tumult swirling in her mind. "I can see you're feeling overwhelmed." As they moved away from the throng, Claire's heart began to steady. Stepping into a less crowded corridor, she leaned against the wall, allowing herself a moment to breathe deeply. It was here, in this small reprieve, that she could actually consider her next steps. "Do you think I'm losing sight of what truly matters?" Lionel looked at her thoughtfully, processing her question. "I think you're finally finding clarity," he responded. "In exposing yourself honestly, you're creating the possibility for change not just between us but within your work life as well." Claire clenched her fists, grappling with a sense of burgeoning purpose but also an unbidden fear of inadequacy. Lionel was right, the weight she had felt during their confrontation with Derek had started a cascade of self-reflection. Was she even capable of leading her team through this transition? The reality of the workplace loomed large in her thoughts. Derek's words were a sharp reminder that her past failures hung over her like a cloud, darkening her confidence. She had been underestimated for so long, often overshadowed by louder, more aggressive personalities. Would this newfound commitment to vulnerability really serve her in a world that often rewarded stoicism? In her quiet contemplation, Claire hadn't noticed that Lionel was watching her, the intensity in his eyes urging her to break from her spiraling thoughts. "Claire," he said gently, "what if this isn't just about what you fear losing? What if it's also about what you're capable of becoming?" His words sliced through her doubts. Moments of clarity often felt fleeting, but right now, they lashed her to a wall of resolve. "You're saying that all these moments of doubt could lead to something greater?" "Yes," Lionel said, the conviction in his voice palpable. "You've faced adversity before. This is just another challenge to overcome. Embrace it." Clarity surged through her. Just as she had navigated difficult projects, building her skill set and confidence brick by brick, she could apply that same tenacity to her personal growth. After all, true authenticity could break blind spots and foster deeper connections in her work. With newfound determination, Claire straightened her posture and cast away the remnants of fear. "You're right," she said, embracing the thrill of possibility. "Personal truths can transform these interactions. But now I must translate that into action." The idea crystallized in her mind: she could approach her team with this commitment to transparency. They would create an environment where honesty wasn't feared but encouraged. It was daunting, yet a rush of energy surged within her. "Our next meeting will focus on fostering open dialogue. It's worth the risk to build a stronger foundation." Lionel grinned, clearly proud. "Exactly. And don't underestimate the impact of honesty. People respond to it, especially in the workplace. It's revitalizing." Fueled by this momentum, they returned to the gala, mingling through the dance of social interactions. As they weaved through the crowd, Claire felt lighter, her earlier fears dissipating like mist in sunlight. The laughter became less daunting, more inviting, nudging her to embrace each conversation. But as they strolled deeper into the festivities, Derek readily appeared again, this time with a group of stakeholders. The dread crept back as she recalled the target painted on her back, not from poor performance, but from the change she was poised to make. Would they still view her with skepticism? "Looks like a great turnout tonight, Claire," Derek's voice boomed, his attention drawn to her and Lionel. "You seem to be in good spirits after our earlier chat." "Thank you, Derek," Claire replied, steadying her breath. "I've decided to address some adjustments within my team to enhance our overall productivity." Derek narrowed his gaze, perhaps sensing the shift in her confidence. "That's a bold approach. People generally resist change." "I believe it can also be liberating," she shot back, a thrill coursing through her veins. She had spoken her truth again, albeit more assertively this time. The stakes were rising, and she felt electrified by confronting the familiar anxiety that surfaced when facing judgment. Claire sensed her colleagues' curiosity. In their eyes, a flicker of respect emerged, a glimmer she hadn't spied before. As laughter bubbled around her and conversations broke into moments of vulnerability, Claire wondered what else lay in wait in this newfound commitment. What if they really did begin cultivating a culture of honesty in their workplace? Little did she know, a pivotal conversation awaited just around the corner, one that could either propel her forward or force her to reckon with the walls she had built. Claire stood in the heart of the gala, surrounded by sparkling chandeliers and laughter that vibrated through her. But amidst the celebration, her mind buzzed with tension. The journey she had embarked upon since that fateful night of tea had intensified beyond her expectation. She had committed herself not just to personal growth but to embracing honesty, and tonight awaited the loop of revelations, an expression of newfound clarity and purpose. The earlier conversation with Lionel echoed in her mind, igniting determination. She was a cleaner, she was a mother. But she was more, capable of weaving her past into a future filled with potential. As conversations flowed around her, Claire turned to Lionel, who was speaking animatedly to some guests, his charisma illuminating the room like the chandeliers above. He caught her eye, half smiling, acknowledging her journey with a gentle nod. Their bond had transformed from hesitant encounters to solid partnership. They were tackling vulnerability together, unearthing growth from their histories and forging a path forward. Even in the midst of luxury, Claire felt the gravity of her leadership responsibilities. She took a deep breath, reminding herself she could face her colleagues with this new mantra of self-assurance. With Lionel's encouragement freshly in her thoughts, she navigated toward the large gathering where the murmurs of her team coalesced. A sudden rush of resolve almost propelled her through the crowd. She could visualize the corridor leading into her office, the table waiting for her strongest ideas. She focused on her commitment to fostering a work environment that embraced honesty. Each conversation was a step toward breaking free of stagnation. "Claire! You made it!" A familiar voice pulled her from her reverie. It was one of her team members, Jessica, with genuine excitement lighting her features. "We've been chatting about those changes you mentioned. What's your vision?" This was it. An invitation to articulate the core of her transformation, to not only respond but actively inspire. She felt the warmth of her newfound confidence surging. Inhaling courage, Claire replied, "The vision is simple: transparency can be our catalyst. We need to cultivate a culture where everyone feels safe to share their thoughts and collaborate without fear of judgment. It's time we stop letting apprehension drive our creativity away." The room fell to a quieter hum, intrigued by her assertiveness, and she sensed the collective awakening. As she spoke, recognition washed over her. This was not merely about the past or the burdens she had endured, this was about carving out new spaces for each person. She shared personal stories, interweaving her journey with the common struggles they faced together. The audience leaned in, engaged and eager to connect. This isn't easy. It requires all of us to embrace vulnerability. Claire continued, her voice steady, empowered by the momentum of shared experience. But I believe wholeheartedly that we can achieve exceptional productivity and creativity once we let down our walls. The energy stirred, heads nodded, eyes sparkled with burgeoning belief. When she finished, an applause broke out, a wave of appreciation that surged like electric currents through the air. She glanced at Lionel, beaming with pride, a testament to the transformative journey they had both undertaken. Recognition filled Claire's chest, but it was different this time. She didn't just feel lighter, she felt established, an emerging leader equipped to empower change. Moments later, Derek reappeared, the weight of earlier conversation now transformed into something different. "That was quite a statement, Claire," he noted, a notable flicker of respect embedded in his words. "If you can maintain this momentum, I see great things ahead." Her heartbeat surged with exhilaration, reinforcing her conviction. "I plan to," Claire responded, eyeing Lionel who stood beside her, affirming their new approach together. It was just the beginning, yet it felt monumental. Turning back to her team, Claire felt the weight of their collective potential. They were poised to revolutionize their environment, turning vulnerability into strength. Together, they could redefine not just productivity, but the very fabric of their workplace. That night marked a pivotal moment in Claire's life. She reframed her past not as chains but as the foundation of her growth. As she moved within the gala, laughter echoed, and conversations blended into each other. She had conquered her fears, transformed her relationships, and built a platform, personal and professional, enabled by honesty. This wasn't just a new beginning but a reclamation of her narrative, her purpose steadily aligned. Claire stepped forward, confident, ready to face whatever came next, anchored in authenticity and supported by those who had ventured alongside her. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we get more content like this. Comment your reactions and theories about this groundbreaking ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Supporting us helps bring more stories of personal triumph to light.